and we are extremely honored, privileged, and delighted to have the next keynote speaker, Mr. Narayana Murthy, co-founder of Infosys. And it gives me even more great pleasure to request Professor Muhammad Yunus to introduce Mr. Narayan and proceed with the keynote. Over to you, sir.
Thank you. It's such a great honor for me to introduce Narayan, and because I feel proud to call myself a friend of Narayan. Narayan is a legend, to say the least. He is the folk hero. He is the hero of a fairy tale. Things that people dream, never thought it can happen, but it happened. Narayan made it happen. And that's what Narayan is. 7 friends coming out of engineering college, trying to do something, not knowing exactly what it would be. And that was the beginning of a big, big fairy tale, which became reality, Infosys. Infosys was just a concept. It was not easy to implement right away. Everything was against it, but they did it, and under the leadership of Narayan. Narayan has become a legend, not only in India, is a global legend. What can be done just by ideas. It's just implementing the ideas that one can have. The power of ideas is shown. If I introduce Narayan as a billionaire, nobody will believe. He doesn't look like a billionaire. Simplicity and austerity is the signature image of Narayan. He believes in giving simple living, and he challenges the capitalist system in many ways. That's what he'll be talking today, compassionate capitalism and entrepreneurship. But the fact that the Infosys came from a scratch and gradually built itself into a global entity and a very successful entity, and it transformed whole Bangalore, and then it's transformed all India. Attitude towards India on technology from completely changed, and the confidence in young people that they can do things and transform everything. Thousands and thousands of young people got into it and transformed the whole IT sector completely in India. And that's Narayan. I have a great pleasure in introducing him today to be our speaker. And Narayan, it's up to you now. Please go ahead and address us.
I thank my friend, Sri Muhammad Yunus, for inviting me to speak here today. All of us who know Muhammad, we respect him for what he stands for and for his concern for the less fortunate ones. Let me today talk about how I was transformed from a confused leftist to a determined, compassionate capitalist. My father, a high school teacher, had fed his children day after day the staple diet of Nehruvian socialism. As youngsters, we had become staunch believers in socialism. For us, in the 50s and 60s, our government was the solution to every one of India's problems. The general belief in India at that time was that poverty was a virtue. Of course, leftism was the fashion in vogue. So when I left India as a young computer software professional in the early 70s to work for a French software company in Paris, I was obviously a confirmed leftist. But what I saw in Paris, the sumptuous markets, well-maintained roads, a modern airport and an extensive metro system, high-speed trains, green parks, prosperous living standards, the wealth, health, education, nutrition, and accommodation of its citizens. They all confused me. My entire edifice of leftist beliefs seemed to be crumbling. I was stubborn, and I was not one to give up easily. I wanted to get to the bottom of this puzzle. I met several bright youngsters from the left, the right, and the center at Sorbonne. I attended several conferences during the weekends organized by the ideologues of these different philosophies. I spent quite a few evenings listening to passionate discussions on these topics over coffee at cafes in the Latin Quarter area located in the 5e arrondissement of Paris. Seeking enlightenment on this complex issue, I even met Georges Marchais, the then head of the French Communist Party. I traveled extensively to various European cities to confirm if all Western European nations which had rejected leftism were indeed prosperous, its citizens had jobs with good income, and the quality of life was much better than what it was in my country, India. Well, interestingly, I found it to be so. I also read many books on capitalism, socialism, and communism. The final nail on the coffin was my being incarcerated for 76 hours unjustly by the Bulgarian police on charges of conspiracy with a well-informed Bulgarian economist against the great People's Republic of Bulgaria. The gendarmes said they were releasing me and banishing me to the distant Istanbul in Turkey on a freight train since I was from a friendly country called India. If these communist countries treated friends like this, I wonder what they would do to their enemies. I introspected deeply during the 21-hour journey from Nice to Istanbul. I was hungry, thirsty, and alone in the guard's compartment of a departing freight train for Istanbul. I had already spent a hungry and thirsty 76 hours of incarceration. This brought the much needed clarity to my mind about the ills of communism and leftism. I was transformed from a confused leftist to a determined, compassionate capitalist. My deep introspection during the journey from Niš in Serbia to Istanbul in Turkey resulted in the following conclusions, which have remained true even today. Let me list them. They are: 1, the only way a poor country can solve the problem of poverty is through the creation of productive jobs with good income. 2nd, The only people who can lead the creation of such jobs are entrepreneurs. They use the power of an idea, sacrifice, innovation, hard work, and deferred gratification in a legal and ethical way to create jobs for youngsters in the country, to create wealth for investors, and to pay taxes to the government for public good expenditure. Third, it is not the responsibility of the government to create these jobs, but it is the responsibility of the government to create an environment that eliminates any and every friction to the success of these entrepreneurs. It is also the responsibility of the government to create a fair, transparent, well thought out, and stable policy regime to regulate these entrepreneurs and their companies, and to provide a level playing field for all market players. Fourth, I also realized that the only way an individual or a nation can become strong economically and earn respect in the eyes of other people and other nations is by consistent performance. I realized that performance brings recognition, recognition brings respect, and respect brings power. Performance requires aspiration, hard work, discipline, honesty, and meritocracy. I also realized that open-mindedness is very important for individuals and nations to learn from people who have performed better than us. The fifth lesson was that I have learned over the years that it becomes easy for corporate leaders to embrace good governance if they exercise self-control over greed, ego, and jealousy. The last lesson was I learned over the years that real success for a human being is the ability to bring smile onto the face of people when you enter a room. Why do people smile when you enter a room? They smile not because you're rich, not because you're beautiful, and not because you're powerful. They smile because they know you care for them. My 6 younger colleagues and I started Infosys with a capital of just $250 in 1981. Today, Infosys employs about 250,000 people, has a revenue of about $14 billion, slightly less, a net income of about $3 billion US, and a market capitalization of $75 billion. Infosys is listed on the New York Stock Exchange as well as on Mumbai Stock Exchange. Let me now talk about compassionate capitalism. I have spoken about entrepreneurship. Now I'll speak about compassionate capitalism. I define a compassionate capitalist as a capitalist in mind and a socialist at heart. What does it mean to be a compassionate capitalist? Let me explain the term as I understand it and as I have practiced. Of course, I'm in the presence of somebody, that is Professor Muhammad Yunus, who knows these things much better than I would ever hope to. So therefore, please pardon me if I am not as right as you people would like me to be. To me, compassionate capitalism is about maximizing shareholder value legally and ethically on a sustainable basis while following the ESG principles and while ensuring fairness, transparency, and accountability to every stakeholder. Who are these stakeholders? Customers, employees, investors, vendor partners, government of the land, and the society. Of these, to me, society is the most important stakeholder because society contributes employees, customers, investors, vendor partners, bureaucrats, citizens, and politicians. How do you become a compassionate capitalist? You become one by showing concern for the less fortunate ones when you take your corporate decisions. You become one by embracing fairness in every transaction. You become one by asking if your decision will improve the quality of life of the lowest level employee in the company. You become one by maintaining a reasonable ratio between the compensation of the highest employee in the company and the compensation of the lowest level employee in the company. You become one by acting according to the words of late John F. Kennedy, who said that a society that cannot help the many who are poor cannot save the few who are rich. You become one by realizing that it is not right and fair to live in luxury while people around you are living in a hopeless and miserable condition. How can we ensure fairness, transparency, and accountability to the society in every decision we take? I would suggest the following method. Before taking any decision, ask yourself whether your decision will enhance respect for your company in the eyes of the society, and whether that decision will enhance respect for you in the eyes of your colleagues, your juniors, your seniors, and your peers, and the entire society. Ask whether your decision appearing on the front page of the newspaper tomorrow morning because that will make you happy or sad. Am I on? Am I on? Okay, I am still on. I was a little bit worried because
No, you're not.
I know I got a message, wrong message. Okay. I have no doubt at all that people assembled here will strive to create a prosperous and a fair society that will wipe the tears of the poorest of the poor. Friends, my best wishes to you. I am once again grateful to Mohammed for this opportunity to speak here. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Everybody's very happy that you accepted it and you made your point very well. And you spoke your heart. And just before you leave, one question about the vaccine appeal that we made together.
Yeah.
How do you feel after all these months that we spent behind it? Still, we couldn't succeed in that. What is happening to the vaccine in the world? What's coming up?
Well, at least in my country,
yeah,
the government has taken a decision that anybody who wants a free vaccine will get it when we go to one of the government-run institutions. However, parallelly, they've also provided facility in private hospitals. Now, this has not happened in most Western nations. That, I think, is something that concerns all of us, including our leader, Muhammad Yunus. Because while we are all concerned about the poor living in developing countries, somehow the poor living in the developed countries have not been looked after, have not been articulated, their plights have not been articulated as well as the plight of the poor in developing countries. To that extent, I personally feel it's a mixed bag. I don't know what you think, Mohammed.
No, we are completely puzzled because even we had an agreement with Serum Institute from Bangladesh that we ordered several millions of vaccines, and they paid in advance. But Indian government now made the policy that they cannot export. So suddenly we are without vaccine, although it's all set. Now we are scrambling around to find vaccines from China, from Russia, whatever they can give, because people are getting very nervous. And same people all around the world, that the vaccine availability is a big question, whereas our appeal to make it patent-free so that companies around the world, production facilities around the world can start producing locally so that it's available. So availability became a big issue. So we're very worried.
No, I entirely agree with you, Muhammad. The most important thing for a human being is to live up to our promise.
Right.
That is what distinguishes human beings from other animals, because we have the right to think.
Yeah.
We can discern what is right and what is wrong. We can discern that we have made a promise and therefore we have to live up to it. So I only hope that the concerned parties will introspect on this and live up to our promise, because our epics of 3,000 years or 4,000 years have focused so much on living up to promise. So I fully understand, I fully appreciate your point of view, and I think we should live up to our promise.
Thank you, Taran. So thank you very much. If we could do that, we'll stand up and give you a standing ovation. But today is all under the circumstances. So we'll just say thank you on behalf of all of us who are listening to you. Thank you. Thank you
very much. Thanks a lot. Can I log off now?
Yes, please. Thank you. So kind of.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Thank you very much, Mr. Narayana Murthy. You leave us all inspired. We are, again, deeply appreciative of your presence and sharing your journey. Thank you, Professor Yunus, as well, for doing the introductions and leaving your thoughts on the vaccination status as well. Right now, as we move on to our next plenary session, we will move on to a very quick technical break for about a minute or two. When we return, we'll be joined by my colleague Zinat Islam, who will be emceeing the next segment.